Hello and good afternoon. You're watching the Policy Times, world's first policy and development media, and you are specifically watching the Unleashing India Global Web Summit series, one of Policy Times' flagship and most sought after event that we have been organizing under the chairmanship of Dr.P.Sekhar, who is also chairman of Unleashing India and Global Smart City Panel, a man who is taking the nation building as the core objective and mission of life and bringing different experts from different domain and trying to contribute something which is worth for the society, for humanity. Now, I, Akram, as editor of the Policy Times, has been extremely proud to associate with him, partner him in all the initiatives that we are doing together. Now, Policy Times, as I told at the beginning, is our mission is we want nation building, national development, national growth. And in that national development or national growth, the if I ask a simple question, what is the most precious resource that any nation has? So this is a very confusing question, and almost 90% people will not be able to answer it. The most precious and important resource of any nation or any society is its human being or its human resource. Most of the time when policymakers make policies, they often underestimate or misunderstand the value or relevance or importance of the human resource. India, as the second uh, populated country of the world, again, is not an exception. Human resource is it's one of the most precious resources if it can utilize it for the betterment. Now, the same human resource can be a liability if it is not properly utilized. For example, petrol or minerals, if they are not utilized, then they are not your liability. But if the human resource is not utilized, then the same person who can be an asset can be a liability for the nation. So for our policymakers, our humble request is let us take human resource as the most precious resource of the nation, and hence all the policies that will be made in the nation should be around building that resource. Because if human resource is ready, the nation can take any kind of actions in the positive direction. I will not go far into how can we build that. We have two experts coming from this. Again, I'll just touch upon that when we talk about human resource, India has at its disposal one of the brightest and a huge, former civil servants and former defense personnel in this country, whether they are IAS officers or bureaucrats or the defense personnel. They are trained, skilled, educated, and ready with any kind of mission, any kind of work that we need to do. How we can use it? Can we have a national policy to make good use of these resources? Will be a very interesting thing to watch out for. Dr. Shekhar, I would request him to kindly take this discussion forward in terms of understanding how we can make better use of the huge resource base we have at our disposal. Thank you. Dr. Sekhar, over to you.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. 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 No, there was some slight internet problem from my side, I think.
Yeah, I think.
Okay. So I'll make it short and sweet because I think there's some sudden internet problem in my side. People, you're all able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
You're able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear.
Okay. Okay. Because there was a sudden jerk in the internet. So today we are having our 123rd session or show or web summit or the way we are trying to word it. Now, this particular web summit, as we have been telling time and again, is for National Reincarnation post-COVID. And first post-COVID is post last year, March, when it started. We believe that post-COVID is going to be it has come with a one-way ticket. It has not come to leave us. It will be one more ailment which has to be permanently be cured. But it has taught a lot of lessons, lot of way forward, lot of ways in which we have to deal with life, lot of ways in which we are professionals in various grades, people in various sectors, and how we can make the country grow, how we can make the world grow, because there's a huge expectation from India, from all parts of the world, and which our people have to come up to their expectation. Now, today we have got extremely, I'm delighted to have two good experts. Why there is some special thing today is, here is one lady who is a private sector giant who has done a lot of very good work, which I'll introduce in another 2 minutes after finish my small presentation. And another is a giant in his own way. He's an ex-brigadier in army, and he has done an immense job for the country. He will be concentrating on military-oriented, defense-oriented, actual operational projects and all. And she will be concentrating on more of international tie-up, possibility of various technologies coming, possibilities of funding coming and all. So before I actually name them and then introduce them, let me just rush through this presentation as usual, because to put the mine is a vision-based statement. So here is India. India, as you know, is a 206 countries put together, 1.35 billion people. We are youngest old nation. We are 70-year-old independent. Otherwise, we are a 10,000-year-old civilization. It depends on which part of the which way we look at the country, and then we got everything and including all sorts of problems in the world. So that it's the question of how we look at it and how to make even the human beings, human Indians, as an asset or liability is left to the way we deal. Now, all these things have started post-COVID. COVID is the whole world. COVID is supposed to be worth only 1 gram, but it has destroyed the economy, it has destroyed the people's confidence. So many things which should not happen has happened. But we are there to grow. Experts like the speakers today are there to take the world, take India into a very different dimension, and we'll take the challenge head on. Okay, we'll not shy away from the challenge because the numbers are diminishing. Even though we are afraid of COVID because of death, the number of deaths caused by COVID is very insignificant compared to the number of deaths. Yes, people near and dear have died, but people near and dear have died by various causes as we see in our life. But since it was done in a dramatic way, it is really sad, and we need to take it in a proper way. Now, next few slides, I will just see only the headlines, not the contents. And criticality of professionals, because professionals with various backgrounds have got various ways to, offer their, experience, suggestions, advice, and actual operation. Okay. And that goes by their past background, because past experience. A newcomer comes more as an intern to learn. The in-between person does operation. The post person gives you the advice way forward based on experience, so that we don't again fall into a pit and have to be lifted up. So that's where the professional development comes in picture. Here, skill, which we skill development is a continuous process. Nobody can say that I am already skilled. So that is something which we have to take training, skill development, and on various aspects of life. So here comes the upskilling of professionals. Again, I will directly go into secure governance, something where I would like to spend 2-3 minutes. Now, secure governance is a self-sustained growth of economy, because both are talking of large projects. So this is something which is very important for us to know. because this is for self-sustained growth of economy. This is by the value and valuation. Suppose something is built around some area that gives huge value. In normal consideration, this particular value creation is not taken by the thing which is creating the value. If you create a road, the road maker is always a pauper or a fraud. So he doesn't take advantage of this thing. Whereas if you take care of the value which it's creating to build the road will come out to be free, because we find by experience that only 3% of the extra value created is cost of the road. This is by people who have done the research on this. Now, some of the largest project in the world, that is the 24 smart cities across Bombay and Nagpur, is going through this secured governance principle, and it has gone into a very, very good dimension. And all these things are documented in the form of series of books, which I have written, more than 100 books, on various sectors, various topics, various regions, including about 10 foreign countries. This is for the benefit of the people to use it and ensure that there is a positive thinking, positive growth, and positive way forward. Now, directly coming to introduce today's speakers, I have Brigadier Rajen Jamwal. He is a highly experienced military person. He has been directly in operation in various sectors, but more than that, his approach to life is very, very important. After retirement, most of the people would look at their pension and then see where I can settle, where I can, at last come out. He is more operative and more active after retirement, and he is doing a lot of work. Coincidentally, both the people today who have come, is this a coincidence? Both are from Jammu, one from the defense and one from the private sector. And even the private sector person was the daughter of a defense official long back. And then she has been in many of the frontiers because of the father. But now she's a full-fledged professional. That is Alpna Khera. She has been in various companies, including General Electric and Serco, and so many good multinationals. She's an expert in bringing international technologies in India. And she is also one of those down-to-earth person who does the work on the ground. She doesn't stay only in air-conditioned cabin and direct people. And she's got this. So how I start today is I want Mr. Brigadier Rajan to give the first 10 minutes talk about himself and about the way forward for this. And then Alpna, then Brigadier Rajan can come into what is the national reincarnation, how his sectors, how the way forward for people like him and work he's doing can bring more comfort to the common man, more comfort for national reincarnation, and more benefit to India and through India to the world. Brigadier Rajan, please.
Thank you, Dr. Sekhar. To begin with, for the viewers, I am Brigadier Rajen Jamwal. Spent about 3.5 decades in the army. That is not counting the training part. That is 3 years in NDA and 1 year in the military academy. So about 4 decades this thing. The schooling was also through a sainik school. So you can say we were picked up at about 11 or 12 years of age. In the army, I've seen generally, one has seen the world and seen all the operational sectors everywhere. Because I was from the combat arm, that did the tenure of the special forces. So in that capacity, one has seen national security from the absolute top to absolute ground. A very varied experience of insurgencies, various spectrums. That is as far as we are concerned. My wife, she was basically a homemaker. Now she started some of her own things just before I retired. She started something, my own things. I've got 2 daughters. One is in US. She is with Microsoft. She is otherwise a designer. Her husband is with the Amazon. Both are settled in Seattle. The younger one is a doctor. He's with us still. And this is about the family. Dr. Sekhar, now should I come to say? Dr. Sekhar, should I come to the topic per se now?
Please continue. Everybody your work and.
Okay. Now for the topic given to me is today post-COVID-19 devastation, an enhanced role for experienced professionals, experts for strategic national reincarnation. To be honest, I have not pitched it exactly at military level. I have pitched it at a different, slightly different level to exactly analyze what is the problem, why doesn't experts come, automatically are in the system, and then probably some solutions can be given. So I'll give you a little background. Now, to begin with, I'll delve into a little history that tells us how we are not prepared early in the future. However, dealing with problems of the future by using tools from our history. Now, let me explain this. It happened globally. 21st century seeing tremors in national politics around the globe, which are essentially born out of inability of 20th century political systems to cope with the stress generated by the technology-driven information flow, free-flowing international finance, and autonomous technologies. One, we have witnessed COVID have truly compressed the world into a global village, unbounding the nation-state frontiers. Now, this is steering at the sheer existential structures and at times causing the nervous background. The future shock is here. To explain some quotes from the Alvin Toffler's epic book, future shock is the shattering stress and disorientation that we induce by subjecting people to too much change in too short a time. Man has a limited biological capacity for change. When this capacity is overwhelmed, the capacity is in future shock. And future shock is the dizzying disorientation brought upon by premature arrival of the future. Now, the future arrived sometime between 2007 and 2010 through availability of affordable smartphones, launch of numerous social media platforms, thus making information, which was previously a privilege of the state, to all in real time. This loss of power of the state was a big blow, especially to fragile political structures which thrived on denial of information to public. And obviously, other followed. With revolution, while the arrival of information revolution was sudden, the global capital was quietly realigning itself to operate in line with this across frontier technologies. Now, with the removal of the need for physical movement of persons or capital came a mushrooming of global tax havens, online multiple global transfers of capital, making the tracing very difficult, water trading, and even cryptocurrencies. These developments have struck at the very root of the nations by eroding their financial sovereignty. Ironically, while the global capital has adopted itself to these path-breaking technologies, our civil and political structures have remained stagnant or under future shock. The third major impact of these autonomous technologies was to remove the need of physical movement of white-collar labor. With real-time information processing and instant data transportation possible, it was possible to outsource work across geographical frontiers and time zones where it can be done more efficiently and cheaply. This not only resulted in mushrooming of low-end call centers in cheap labor time zones, but offloading of high-end research and development to areas where the said high-end manpower was available at competitive rates. This changed the rules of the game. As product development became truly transnational, and physical migration of high-end talent was only done after initial screening and proven competence at their native locations. These technologies, while making corporates richer, also allowed them to escape the tax nets of their host countries. While the international capital adapted and profited from these technologies, the political structures internationally failed to adapt and remained static, and thus came into conflict with them. Now, conflict causes upheaval, and the same came in form of internationally WikiLeaks, closer home, Panama leaks in Pakistan, and our very own scam series. Now, some may argue that dishonesty was at the core of these scams. Well, honesty and fraud have been around for a time, but the ability of technology to move capital around and place them in untraceable accounts easily affects its magnitude. Further, when I talk of global capital, it necessarily does not only mean legal capital. The technology also blurred the line between legal and illegal, thus further eroding the authority of the respective states. Now, this is a situation which made it possible for Mr. Malaya to escape prosecution in Indian courts by claiming in UK courts that he is being prosecuted for illegitimate business decisions, which he made in good faith. Now, is it a coincidence that the global financial crisis of 2007-8 was co-timed with early arrival of future? In my view, it was born out of conflict between the capital structures, which quickly adapted to new technologies, profited from it, and were able to create blind spots which the existing structures, yet unadapted, could not identify. Now, what was the establishment response? The establishment responses have differed in various cultural time zones. The Middle East response responded to the information consequences the elites by assertion religious ethnic groups. It's like the Muslim Brotherhood, which were in the forefront of Arab Spring, which were expressed by the ruling elite. However, by the sheer momentum of protests, they could not. Even the rise of ISIs, it can be partially attributed to this manifestation of religio-ethnic groupism and tends to block the future by trying to fall back on the past. That is the caliphate system. That is one response. Now, the developed world in general, it responded by increased protectionism, discouraging outsources through disincentive. Countries like China, they increased trade control on population, social media in a bid to isolate. Developing countries, seeing a flight of capital, had a mixed response. Now, depending on the leadership, while some sank even further, some are on the brink of joining the underway of developed all failed state leagues. Others have maintained the status quo. Only very few, like India, have reasons to positively look at the future. While the overall internationally response has been non-cohesive and produced no real change in national or even international political structures, few developments have been common. Now, what are these? These are, firstly, the rise of the personality cult. It is no coincidence that the rise of cult personalities has been near simultaneous across the globe. Now, these are the individuals who are considered egoistic, even eccentric by their opponents, but are nothing short of messiahs by their followers. Their common threads are like a charismatic, outspoken persona, an unpredictable, independent mindset, ruthless disposition, and a capacity for very harsh decision making, more in the mode of super patriots. Trump in US, Putin in Russia, Xi Jinping in China, even Modi ji in India, and adding cynically, even Baghdadi in Middle East. Now, the trend is the nations which are benefit of such leaders are on a downward spiral. The second is the expansionism. It is not only China which is expanding, trying to expand through its Arab initiative. All world powers have their presence directly or through their proxies, not only in every conflict zone, but also resource-rich zones of the world. Now, this is not a new phenomenon and has been in existence for quite some time, but it has reached a level of urgency in the new world order, where non-state global capital is a competitor for these resources, which the existing establishments could protect through the only instrument which the state has monopoly over, that is military power. China is inching forward in all directions, not content with its assertion on South China Sea. It has physical presence in a whole lot of Asian and African countries. Russia has already annexed Crimea, virtually owns Syria, and controlled a number of regimes in Africa. US, the bad boy of this game, has a head start and has a pie in every corner. It has affected the art of using military power for regime change. So the choices before the nation today is either to grow or disintegrate. Status quo is no more an option. The second is groupings. Those who are not powerful enough to expand formed regional groupings to assert bigger social political identity. As also powerful groups to form various cliques. Although the cliques were also quite, but they all actually became powerful and really became socio-economic entities. If you see post 2007, the European Union, it may have been created in 1951, but and the euro was launched in 90s, but it actually became a group of from 9 countries, 6 countries to 9 to finally 28 countries with a common currency and a common economic agenda as late as 2013-14. Similarly, the G20, created though in 1999, it came into international financial governance only post 2007. Same is the case for BRICS or other, which were either created post this event or were in existence, but came into their own during this process. Now, while the world, the others like OPC, OIC, Arab League, since they failed to evolve, they have now disintegrated into what I would call a non-effective platforms. Now, while the world was slowly getting used to these series of shocks driven by future technology, came the mother of all shocks, that is COVID-19. Now, COVID-19, it was a byproduct of amalgamation of technologies, These research labs spread over the globe, gone haywire, whether by accident or design, remains to be proved. It similarly remains to be proved whether it was an act of one single state or an international conglomerate for political or economic dominance. What one is absolutely sure is that international system, that is WHO, in the instant case, failed miserably to either give early warning, monitor, or control the same. It gave a typical analog response to a digital problem. It did not have real-time monitoring facilities and automated alerts, and instead relied on information supplied by individual nation states, which for a number of reasons had hidden or misrepresented crucial data. Thus, coming to my basic point, as the world community allowed creation and amalgamation of technologies without creating a platform for preventing its misuse. While in old days it took months and years for a similar infection to even spread locally, COVID became an international pandemic in a matter of days. That was the true test of world having shrunk to a global village. Now, even within national boundaries, the responses were mostly analog, some more effective than others. Now, give you an example in case of our country. When it was known during the first wave that majority of require oxygen worthwhile distribution. Reliance was still on generation of demand from hospital to state, compilation by central agency, and then distribution in proportion to projected demand. As a result, most of the hospitals and states, they inflicted that demand so that they could get maximum quota. Now, this is not how logistics of critical life-saving equipment, drugs, and other accessories is supposed to be planned. Each hospital today is automated with their internal logistics, inventory, staff rosters, patient demography, and billing fully automated. Though the software use is not common, it doesn't take rocket science to integrate the databases into one common server, which will auto-generate the logistic requirements, including oxygen and other life-saving drugs, the most critical components of fight against COVID. Now, in this, what are the choices in such a situation? What are the choices before India? India is today yearning for its rightful place on the global stage. The need can achieve the same with political and economic structures and tools of an era gone by. Our cutting edge of deliverance is still a rusted steel frame for which nuances of digital frameworks are beyond comprehension. Our political structure is still raw, fracturing the mandate into non-effective and mutually exclusive collisions. The political system is hijacked. Our systems do not allow meritocracy, but instead encourage mediocrity. The value systems are for maintaining status quo, and change is resisted. Press is free that has no partisan, and a new term of prostitutes had to be coined. Intelligentsia's hostage. It is hostage to political beliefs that have long disappeared even from their countries of origin. Financial institutions have not come to grasp the new age, thus allowing a few in connivance with few internal parasites to flee the system. We have independent judiciary, so independent that it has taken upon itself the role of executive and set for itself a closed cocoon where any question on its internal functioning is at par with blasphemy. We are imploding internally because we are not growing. All this is probably known. So what do? We have already chosen a strong leader, but still a lot of Lutyens' daily baggage is stuck with him. Further, he's a lone ranger. The nation must have alternatives, equally strong and dynamic. And as of now, I don't see any on the horizon, either in the ruling party or in the opposition. So be it. We need to refine our political structures. I mean, I am not for rewriting constitution or new constitution, but at least I can advocate constitution of a constitution review assembly. Let it be an elected body. Let the selling points be debated and then put to referendum. Those that pass shall form the building blocks of new India. I have a few views of my own in this regard, but then we would be transgressing from the topic. Now, before we talk of the topic per se, that is experts, let's have a brief view of the existing system. Now, there has been no structural change in bureaucracy since 1971. The US, after the Watergate scandal, passed a Civil Services Reform Act in 78. Now, the list of scandals here is endless, but nobody felt the need to form a Civil Services Reforms Act. Now, a few years back, there was an attack. About 10 prominent professionals were inducted at the level of Joint Secretary, but it is too little too late. The current disposition is totally out of sync with rapidly accelerating technology, capital flow systems, and even the aspirations of those they govern. We have a wide gap between the local bodies, that is the corporations, the panchayat, to state legislators. Now, there is urgent need to do a lot of things. Policy making needs to be made participative and flow bottom upwards. Finally, the speed of decision making must conform to the speed of acceleration of change. I'm afraid it is only possible in a completely networked and digitized atmosphere, which are a far cry from. I am doubting the very capacity and willingness of existing system to usher in a digital India. I doubt CEO of any middle enterprise also. I mean, takes his call and type minute sheets, put up through proper channels. The world has moved from hierarchical communication to grid communications. And we are still stuck with the hierarchical communication, and bureaucracy are the biggest hierarchies anybody can produce. So what should the nation do? Now here it comes. Bring in the experts. Now, before we proceed, who is an expert? I checked through the Merriam-Webster dictionary. It says having, involving, or displaying special skill or knowledge derived from training or experience. Now, the Cambridge dictionary says it's a person with high level of knowledge or skill relating to a particular subject or activity. As usual, Wikipedia gives a little more elaborate. This thing, it says an expert is somebody who has a broad and deep competence in terms of knowledge, skill, and experience through practice and education in a particular field. Informally, an expert is somebody widely recognized as a reliable source of technique or skill whose faculty for judging or deciding rightly, justly, or wisely is accorded authority and status by peers or public. So we can generalize that to be an expert, one must have firstly high/deep competence in at least one field. The expertise could be, and secondly, the expertise could be from education, research, experience, occupation, or a combination of these. Third, the expertise or skill set should be recognized by peers and publics. Now, going by the above, the number of people in current, both executive and political, who can take decisions related to policies affecting, they can count them on fingertips. So what is the answer? How will national regeneration come about? Now, here one must differentiate between pure academic brilliance and the brilliance combined with a visionary ability and management acumen that helps translate the person into an iconic chosen leader in the field. Now, we had a few. We had Homi Baba, Abdul Kalam, Jamshed Tata in the past. Among the current crop, I would count Narayan Murthy ji, Sridharan, and even J.R.D. Tata. The problem is, how do we make these in large numbers? And more importantly, have them work for us, with or for the government, effecting that national regeneration so we so desperately desire. In fact, I would personally prefer the term specialist that expert to various governments and still in vogue. Prominent specialists are posted in various ministries that help in policy making and implementation. The problem with this route is that mainly apart from few genuine specialists, bulk of appointed advisors are political or bureaucratic resettlers who have basically been appointed as a matter of payback for loyalty rendered to the current dispensation. This was the case earlier. This is the case now. A bare look at the advisory bodies formed by various governments or various ministries would testify to that. There is no system of cross-checking their usefulness, contribution, or effectiveness. Notwithstanding, it remains a viable route to get genuine experts into the system. Now, the second is direct hiring. The service rules do allow direct hiring of experts into the system for a fixed tenure-based roles. The government did at a live and then hire more director and director. Now, this route will always face stiff opposition from existing bureaucracy, which I'm sanguine it will oppose it tooth and nail, as it steps on their well-cultivated turfs. Notwithstanding, the government must push for it, but competition is always good. A civil services reform act similar to US would make things easier for government. Now, the third would be make your own experts. Now, this could be a controversial or a very viable option. And in my mind, the best long-term solution to our regeneration program. It involves converting the existing and future bureaucracy into domain expert professionals. Now, this can be done through 3-4 actions. Part 1, change the recruitment pattern.
Brigadier,
from
can we have Alpna and then we'll continue after 10 minutes?
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll continue.
Because we are running slightly short of time.
No issues.
Alpna, you can listen.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Rajanji. Good afternoon, the viewers. Very difficult to step into the shoes of Dr. Rajan with the white canvas that he kind of throwed over. So I'll kind of converge a little bit to the sector that I play in. So I'm someone who has had around 27 years of working experience so far. I've worked across sectors in energy, infrastructure, transportation, and mobility at large. As Dr. Sekhar said, that yes, I'm connected to ground for a reason, that I was one of the early women who started working on a shop floor in a power plant when there were not many seen doing maintenance of gas turbines and those kinds of work. So I've kind of started working from that regime. Went on to work for companies like GE, Keolis, BHLG, joint venture, Torrent Power, and others. And for the last 7 to 8 years, I've kind of coined myself as somebody who's a little bit of an expert of all and none, to be able to associate with the multinationals who want to come to India and set up the business in terms of strategic partnerships or bring into their commercial expertise. So I have been engaged with companies like SNCF Group, like Keolis, who are into railways, metro, O&M of transit as a transport solution. I've also been associated with companies like Masabi, who bring in technology from UK. I'm currently also associated with the oil and gas major from the US. But post-COVID, some change happened to how my expertise also started getting absorbed in the industry. We did not see many companies coming to India, but the government was still doing a lot of work. And for the first time, for the last 1.5, 2 years, I've been associated with government as one of their consultants or experts to work with. And to your point, Rajanji, I agree that direct recruitment to government is a challenge because, but I'm sure they found some right way to, have us through their partners. So I have been working with NCRTC, which is one of the premium government bodies, a joint venture between Government of India and various other state governments, who are trying to come up with regional rapid transit solutions in the country. And when I got associated with them, I had been working on them on the operation and maintenance outsourcing of the transit system that they are building. So just in terms of, you mentioned, Rajanji, it takes a lot of time for our country to come to consensus. I remember in 2012, I started writing white papers to the various chief ministers and various governments about role of private operations or outsourcing operation and maintenance in large infrastructure projects in transit. And it has taken us some time while we are now actually thinking of looking at partnering in the right way to bring operational efficiencies, the right way to bring multi-skilling, and to be able to build infrastructures which are both profitable, sustainable, and safe. And at the same time, they can give an ease of connectedness and ease of experience to a customer that we had been lacking because of so many interbodies and ULBs interconnected in how a customer travels. So so that has been some of my experiences. So just to confirm as to what I'm doing or converge, I have been associated with the government as an operation and maintenance person, trying to build partnerships and trying to build commercial structures where global partners who have been doing operation and maintenance of such large connected transport solutions can come to India and actually partner with our Indian transport authorities in creating what could be the right fit for India as a model for running those transport solutions. We are also trying to work with, and as you mentioned, Rajanji, we just don't need technology. We need both technology, process, and people to actually make the expertise as a whole flourish. So in that sphere, Shekharji, as in your last telecast, you talked about cybersecurity. We are now working with a French and an Israeli tie-up, when we're trying to bring cybersecurity as a service to all these, the railway and transit society. We have also seen cybersecurity mostly as IT so as for now, but I think it's time we start looking at it from an operational technology. So IT and OT, how can we combine in the transit space is something that we are working. And we're also looking at how post-COVID, certain security and technologies that we were deploying have to be now rehashed. For example, frisking has to go away. Perhaps we can't just be doing frisking, the throughput is not right, the social distancing can't manage. So we need to get to alternates. Similarly, on baggage screening, on video analytics, there are certain aspects of that technology, behavioral aspects, which need to undergo a change looking into what we are kind of creating. And lastly, I would say we also need experts who have domain and the technology, because no infrastructure that's getting produced today is purely a transit hub or is purely a real estate hub. If you look at station development, for example, that countries trying to do, we need experts who understand transit and who also understand retail, and they can combine the safety elements, the design elements, and the customer experience element of a combined space which has transit and retail. Similarly, is the scope for many other, where I think we need intersection of certain domain expertise, certain capability expertise, and we need to bring the expertise and create experts who can look at these mini centers or mini solutions of infrastructure from a connected expertise. And I agree with Rajanji that traditionally, either we have gone over to create consultants or we have gone over to get people from outside to advise us. I think we need to be able to imbibe a little bit of both. We need to understand what has worked in the West or worked in other aspects. But there are certain situations which are very unique to India, which we also need to kind of get into consideration while we actually unlock the value opportunity. So if you look at transit-oriented development, for example, we can get into and learn from experts who have done this around the world. But what we could do in India is phenomenal if we actually apply a little bit of a local situation and some of your principles of secured governance, Dr. Sekhar, we can actually unlock a much bigger value. So we need experts who bring in certain expertise, but we also need experts to have the ability to unlock the value that India as a domain and specificity of our infrastructure needs. And lastly, I would say we also need to look at expertise that can bring around seamless connectivity to any transportation, transit, infrastructure, or experience today. Whether it is, I would say two things: seamless connectivity and choices. Because if you look at the younger generation, they're all about choices. At our ages, we were okay if we had only one or two ways to buy a ticket to a mass transit. But the generation of today wants choices on mobile, through card, through Paytm, through Lyft. So you need to create technology which is scalable, which is open, which allows for choices, and which also gives you a seamless experience around what you're trying to do. Just to give an example of ticketing, is also still struggling in many large cities to integrate between an auto, between a metro, between an RRTS, and we are not able to create a seamless platform to even make ticketing a technology that we can say, okay, I have an app and I can just know my journey planning, my ticketing can all happen here. We still have to juggle between a few. So I would say connectedness of technology and expertise is very important to build. Building upon from the provenness and meritocratic solutions which have worked in the past has to be married to what can be unlocked and limitations of India. And we also have to integrate that with an aspect that we have to build infrastructure and expertise which is fit for future, which is fit for maintainability. So far, we have looked at we have looked at infrastructure as a civil project. We have never looked at infrastructure as a project that has to live for 100 years and it has to serve customers. So I think this whole mind shift towards, that we are building it for customer experience. We have to build safer networks, connected networks. I think we need to build some internal expertise, but we also got to respect what other expertise comes to over. I think a lot of times we do hire experts just for the purpose of hiring, but we are not able to let go our beliefs. Sometimes in the government, they have always controlled procurement. They have always controlled certain things. So to let go or to have those kind of accept those models where you actually give the reins to an expert to run or an expert to do needs a little bit of behavioral aspect of letting go and believing, which I think is somewhere lacking. We are still somewhere in between where we are not too sure of adopting. We still want to keep the control with ourselves. And somewhere that's where the benefit of experts doesn't come in because, and they also try to then politically manage the bridge and come to some kind of a consensus. So I think expertise should be seen as a independent body, and the respect of what they bring on the table should also be implemented. At the same time, I would say a lot is happening on the technology side. A lot of expertise around common data environments, around project management, on time, on cost is happening. We are purchasing a lot based on the expert advice, but I don't think we are leveraging and using what we are buying, or we are taking the advice. So I think be it government or be it private, I think we also got to have the ability to leverage and actually use the advice or the products or technologies that we are buying today, which these experts are suggesting. With that, I will switch it over and maybe come back.
Yeah, thank you so much. And of course, Brigadier, I want to call you Professor Brigadier, Professor Rajan. You are so flamboyant, so nice in whatever you presented. It was very, it was not a military man talking. It was a professor in management talking. A really pleasure. Now, coming to our final segment, I would like, of course, it was 10 minutes for this. We'll keep 5 minutes, where we talk really of national reincarnation, which means, whatever we are doing, how the nation can throb back, not get back, throb back into growth phase, how there will be good employment, how there will be good economic growth, how there will be seamless integration of various things which we discussed till now. What would be the suggestions? And critical prospect we already discussed. Let us discuss the positive way forward and how if it is for 5 minutes, it will be good for us to close on time. But it's not a limitation. Even that we will extend it. Please go ahead.
In the experts, I mean, we can make your own expert. So finally, I was coming to the best route. I mean, what you were suggesting us is the SPV route. I mean, we can convert our bureaucracy into experts, having the 10+2 model I was just saying, give them, instead of allotting them only states, give them expert domain, which within 5 years they have to get a degree, and then they grow in that domain. So you're changing bureaucracy, changing it slowly, or this thing. Now, the most important would be the SPV route. I mean, this is the route which has been working everywhere. This is the way we can get the most of the experts fastest and deliver the results very effectively. Special purpose vehicle, every development need. Instead of only focusing on one structure, you can create a separate SPV. I mean, since I'm from J&K, I can give you some examples which are rooted in this. Like I'll give you an example of a project called Roshni. Very noble project. I mean, you would all be aware. There is a 20,000 megawatt estimated electricity generation potential in J&K. Out of 16,000 megawatts is surveyed. However, the tapped is only 3,300 megawatt. That means not even 1/3 has been tapped. And this is only in the mega power sector. If you include the micro and mini sectors, the difference is very large. I mean, say it could double or treble. So a project was launched. What it is called Project Roshni. It approximately cost about 8 crores to 1 megawatt to create that railroad. And finally, the government had to withdraw because the people implementing neither had an idea about what is hydroelectricity, neither have an idea about geospatial technologies through which the land distribution or selling could have taken place, and concerned logarithm through which the purchases could have been made. In absence of it, it had to become a scam and it had to be withdrawn. Imagine the potential if this would have gone through. This is something like what I was telling you. It is something like we are from the J&K itself. It is like 15,000 barrels of oil we are dumping in sea every hour. Are denying 1 crore households electricity because we are just not generating out of it. Out of what is already estimated. I'm not even coming to that micron mini, which says would trouble this thing. There will be transformation change. Look at the strategic change means creating this much of potential. It creates a fact in being. That means we would have a capability to store about 3 or 4 or 5 years of water and therefore develop a capacity to desertify Pakistan, Punjab. Couple this with, okay, you don't do this, we will give you electricity. Paid electricity, of course. And the poor guys are presently making electricity out of coal, which costs 16 bucks a unit. And you are giving them 5 to 6 rupees a unit, which is the cost we charge in Delhi. So they'll be too happy. And the moment they do something, we switch it off. We switch off the tap, we switch off the electricity. We are making them energy dependent. This could be, this could have been a strategic project. Now, this I have talked about only J&K. This is the potential. Look at all the Himalayan states and this thing, how much hydroelectricity, the resources can be generated. We are a resource-rich country. And similarly, coming to some other resources we have in, especially J&K, we are mineral rich. Everybody has heard of Kashmiri sapphires, blue Neelam. They call it. It is the best. It is managed. It requires experts, people, mineralogists who can know its true worth, people who know how to do the marketing. Now, all this is not happening. That is where we need to form SPVs, the special purposes vehicle, especially for each product. We have a organization called LAURA, which regulates our water authorities. It has been trying to clean Dal Lake for decades and has spent thousands of crores. And the Dal Lake is a say. Now you trust this organization to create water transport in the state. How will it do it? It does not have a single guy who knows what water transport is all about. So obviously, you have to replace with an SPV, which has got domain experts on water transport, on water cleaning. They are the guys who will make a difference, who will change. And this will be a change for national duration. It will, completely change the way we operate, the way administration is done, and the results will be visible. And I've given a few examples of J&K. I can go on and on, but then again, we will be exceeding the time limit at the national level. Example of the shipping industry. Why? Renting a ship is more expensive than owning one in J&K. Now, what are the implications? Our shipping industry has taken a hit. Come wartime, we may not have enough maritime assets of our own to import something very critical. Now, who is responsible? Obviously, the policy was made by somebody who would neither understand shipping, neither understand national security. Now, this is where, had the experts on both national security and shipping been involved in this policy, we wouldn't have been in this stage where the country as doesn't have indigenous space. The examples are quite good, but to conclude, I have to say we have to give an internal shock. The country needs an internal shock because that has become a prerequisite to avoiding a future shock in the process. That has to be the establishment response, because we don't have any time. Others are moving at the speed of thought. The world is moving ahead. So unless you make the change, you get in the experts, things will remain status quo. I think that will be enough. I finished my time. Yeah, I finished my time.
Yeah.
This time I was looking at the watch.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So anyway, you last 2 minutes of the week. Now, Alpna madam, you would
just picking the thought from what Brigadier Rajan said around the right policy making and the right thing, but getting to a little bit of infrastructure space from the policy making. I think some of the policies that we are making around transit-oriented development or the privatization of our assets or moving from capex to opex kind of models is actually going to help the national building in a manner. For example, if you look at metros, we have the likes of Alstoms and Bombardiers and everybody having in-country manufacturing with the expanse that's going around, and that is going to create technology and also exports, not just employment but also export from those centers. If you look from the logistics and warehousing kind of parks that we are trying to create around the country, I'm sure it's going to help a lot into both imports and exports, and also for manufacturers to come in here. From a technology perspective, I think some benefit of India lagging in technology and some benefits is that we are now leapfrogging and we are actually becoming the center for others to come in, do something, and not just do it for India, but do it from India for the world. Just touching back on the topic I talked about, station development, something. If you look at ropeways, there's a huge potential for us to make ropeways as a part of urban transit, and not just a touristic situation. The Dehradun to Missouri ropeway, for example, we could look at really expanding that in the transit space. I talked about cybersecurity. Now, there's one company which is trying to build a security operations center for the globe out of India. So, if you create those kind of partnerships and SPVs and technology and situations through the right experts, I think India can not only benefit from being the right cost center for infrastructure or right time center for infrastructure, but also become the right technology hub to serve the world. And that way help us not just with employment, but also with other benefits. The whole transit oriented development, the whole customer experience is also going to help us in our tourism and other allied industries, if we kind of look at. And of course, it will also fuel in some investments that it should. Last but not the least, I talked a lot about the infrastructure, but I think post COVID, wellness is also an area where if you can bring the right experts and build the right expertise, we could actually become world leaders. In the wellness industry, a lot. So I would say data analytics, digital transformation, the wellness industry, the whole infrastructure space, the TOD space, the connectedness and technology are some areas where experts are being employed and deployed today. I think if we make good use of them in a constructive manner, I think we can definitely, fast track our recovery, not just the recovery, but we can actually leapfrog much better and kind of become the guiding light for some of the countries going forward. So with these, I would perhaps end my time, Dr. Sekhar.
Thank you so much. So coming to some of the key points, of course, is that the whole technology has made the difference. Like Professor Rajan, I'm saying, Brigadier Rajan was saying that because of technology, so many things are understood and so many things are misunderstood because we are not able to keep track of the needs because of technology. It is said that just 15 years back, if somebody is waits in a bus stop for 1 hour, they don't feel bad. Today, the 3 seconds in the signal becomes so irritating to anybody. Same person has waited 1 hour in a bus stop. Nothing happened. And the 2 bus was going slow. Here's a car which goes without any problem, without any this thing, and waits for 3 seconds. The whole world goes down. So, but we can't help it. This is what is the millennial problem, or even the elders have become millennials in terms of the expectation. So that, the planners, the people like you all, people like us, everybody has to keep track of this one. We may make comments, but we should also see in whatever way we can contribute around all of us. Even we talked about various countries' expansion, various countries thinking that they are the same. We should also know that India is also expanding. There are 25 million Indians abroad. And at least I think about 25 countries have Indians in their ministry. And a few other countries do have even president, prime ministers who are Indians. If you go to a beauty, world beauty contest, 11 countries are represented by Indians. Okay, so we are also expanding, and we are expanding not like others. We are not expanding with military power. We are not expanding with any remotest approach to rule that country. We are working together as a country. So our approach is very, very human. Our approach is developmental. Our approach is contributory. Our approach is knowledge-based. So another point which comes, when Indians go abroad, we feel we have lost all the good Indians abroad. No, we have not lost anything. People going abroad are going as our ambassadors abroad. We are in fact selling a super computer to them. Each and every 25 million is a super computer which is being sent to those countries, and which is bringing good dividends to India. So India is getting $85 billion per annum from these 25 million people from their own account. It's not going to government. So, and they are creating a good vibe in the country. There are of course black sheep, like you rightly mentioned, Vijay Malaya and others, which is part of the game. When we have 25 million, this thing, I have written a book on overseas Indians. We have to take care. Tomorrow, some other countries will say that all our prisoners are Indians. Even if 5 people are there, for them to write will not be difficult. So we have to take care that we Indians go abroad and create a goodwill. If somebody is bad, we bring them back. We should have a separate place where we should bring them back, and whatever punishment is there, please do it here so that we are not a liability to the world. Because world is very good for us. World has the highest level of expectations from India. If you go to Europe and all, they say we are dependent on India for the future because they see a bleak world. You know, in our own show, some 2 shows back, it was on Japan. So some of the facts and figures of Japan were quite defining. They say the way things are going on, 30% of Japanese will never get married in the next 20 years. 30%. You know, how they have come to know, but the Japanese saying, I can't say it is wrong. And another about 20% will not have children only. And another may have 1 child. So the whole population is dwindling, and existing populations are all will be 90, 95, 100, 105, and you know, there's nobody is dying phenomena will come. They are expecting Indians to come there, Indians to be there this thing. They have given a lot of leverage, a lot of, you know, welcome signs for India. So when we go there, we are going as a welcome sign. As much as we expect experts from other countries to come and give what they want to give and what they can give and what they should give, and take it in a right spirit. Some of the things which was pointed out was that many of those things are not taken in the right spirit. We just try to, you know, tell what he should tell me. You call an expert and tell him, please you tell me this, then the expert will run away. We should know how to take an expert's advice, how to take this thing. And even among the experts, there are various experts. If you see COVID, like rightly pointed out by Brigadier, that WHO is the first villain. You know, every day they're sending contradictory signal. Whether they have understood COVID, one doesn't know. They are trying to say one thing one day, second day something, third expert comes and says this is deadly, fourth expert, you don't have to worry. Fifth says, you know, bigger and bigger things are yet to come. You know, creating so much of fear, not knowing that every statement from them brings down the people's moral, people's psyche and economy down, which they should be careful in terms of the value of the chair which they are sitting. So with that particular this thing, since we are also running slightly out of time, I would like to close. Last 1 minute, people can, you both can say whatever you may like to say to close this session. Brigadier?
Yeah, in fact, totally agree with you. I mean, we're US office of Microsoft, in the Microsoft headquarters, because that's what she works. I mean, it is like you're welcomed. I mean, being from India is a matter of pride now, because I mean, the number of other things, I could only see Indians and Chinese. Very few white-skinned people, you know, and bulk, it's all Indians and Chinese. This is precisely what they're. I mean, we have actually created in the, at least in this the technology sector, we have created our dominance. I mean, they are bigger. So this expansion must continue.
Correct.
You see, when I said expansion, we have to expand. This is also expansion, what you said, and it's a soft expansion. It's a soft expansion, that is all. But expansion has to continue. You call it cultural expansion, you call it soft expansion, whatever you call it. But we need to expand. If we don't, then we disintegrate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Alpna, madam.
I think very nicely summed up by Brigadier Rajan. I would just say that I think we need to become a little bit more agile and a little bit more culturally sensitive when we come to our leadership of taking a few things, because we need to be a little bit more receptive. We also need to be more diverse and inclusive the way we kind of bring our expertise. I think if we can work on some of these softer aspects of how we create our professional expertise apart from process, domain, and culture, I think we'll be far more successful globally, not just in bringing them and listening to them, but also being listened and also being respected for what we bring. So I would just end at that.
Thank you. Thank you. With that, I thank both the speakers.
They say, no, sir, that men of quality welcome equality. So,
yeah. So with that, I'll thank both Brigadier Rajan and Alpna for giving this excellent exposure, and we hope many more similar things. We are doing it continuously for last more than 1 year, twice a week, and we are having even more exciting as much things to come. And we would like people to participate, people to say, people to educate. The whole system is to bring goodness, development to the world. It is with critical what is it that we can do, what is it the country should do, how to go forward, how to take what is good in us to the world, and how to take I think there was a small this thing. I only said that, let us see whatever we have good to go abroad and whatever others have to come back to India. And with that, I thank both again. And Policy Times is there to bring more such program, more such development agenda, more such ways in which we all can go and we all can contribute to the global growth, starting from Indian growth. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Sekhar. Thank